Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to be doing the March of the Mammoths tag. This tag was created by Jim of Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff, and he kindly tagged me in his original video. I will leave links to his channel in the show notes down below. So before I begin, what exactly is a mammoth? So here on BookTube, a mammoth refers to a book that is 800 or more pages in length. And it has become a tradition here on BookTube in March to read or at least start a mammoth book. And the original creator of this, or one of them, is Oblu's Chapter and Verse. So let's look at the prompts. Question number 1. Are you currently reading a mammoth? My March reading plans called for me to read 2 mammoths, one of which I finished and the other one I'm still working on, although depending how my discussion of that book in this video goes, I might decide to drop it. So let's talk about the book. So over the course of the weekends in March, I'm reading manga, starting with The Mammoth, which I finished. And then during the course of the work week, read The Other Mammoth. So I started the month of March with Death Note by Tsugumi Ohba and Takeshi Obata. Death Note is a manga series about a young man named Light Yagami, who is a brilliant high school student with a bright future ahead of him. One day he finds a death note, a notebook left behind by the Shinigami Ryuk. And Light discovers that if you write someone's name in the death note, that person will die. Whether or not Light Yagami was sociopathic, psychopathic, and narcissistic to begin with, or if the death note corrupted him into a sociopathic, psychopathic narcissist, is up for debate. But regardless of what exactly happens, Light Yagami decides to create a new world and become its god by using the death note to purge the world of criminals and all those who oppose him. This leads to Light being called online and then in popular parlance, Kira. And Kira's actions lead to a number of national and international police organizations to look into its activities, and this draws the attention of the world's greatest detective, L. So the series becomes a cat and mouse game between Light Yagami and L to either capture or kill the other. And so I've read it and I liked it. I didn't love it. Death Note is not one of my favorite manga series. I think I prefer a work that's more heavily fantasy and more adventurous, and also with more likable characters. Light Yagami is a piece of work, although the payoff at the end is quite satisfying. So, yeah, I read it. This is not so much a mammoth as it is a kaiju of a book. So, Death Note was originally published in Weekly Shonen Jump, like individual chapters. And then those chapters were brought together into 12 volumes. And then eventually they were further condensed into 4 or 6 omnibus editions. And then this all-in-one edition, which is why I'm yeah, for March of the Mammoths. And really, given its length, it's more of a kaiju than a mammoth. The other mammoth I set myself to read in March, and the one that I'm currently working on, or still working on, is The World, a family history of humanity by Simon Sebag Montefiore. This book I came to with a lot of trepidation, and if you've seen a few earlier videos, you'll know why. But I'll go ahead and explain it again. So, when this book came out, I didn't immediately jump on it, even though at the time I pretty much would have hoovered up most works of history that even remotely interested me. Not that I actually got around to reading any of them, which is why so many of the books that are currently surrounding me I've not yet read, or haven't gotten around to yet, compared to my manga collection, which I pretty much have read almost all except for One Piece and Twin Star Exorcist, which I'll get to in the next few months. But anyway, back to The World. So I wasn't entirely sure about The World. I'm thinking it was probably because of the price. It is a very large book, and so it probably would have been priced accordingly. And I looked at the preview, I read a preview of it, and I caught a mistake right off the bat. The opening chapter mentions or focuses on Enheduanna, an Akkadian princess priestess who was a high priestess of the Sumerian moon god Nana and the Akkadian moon god Sin. In this opening section, the moon god is referred to as the moon goddess. And it really bugged me because I'm of the opinion if I catch a mistake that the author didn't catch, that his team didn't catch, that his editor didn't catch, then what else in here is wrong that I'm not going to catch? How can I trust this book? But despite that trepidation, I did ultimately buy it, although for a number of years it has languished on my shelves. And I decided to finally get around to having a go at it this month. And I don't know necessarily if I want to continue. The prose is perfectly okay, but I'm not loving it. I'm not actually particularly enjoying it. And the book is very high on the soapy, by which I mean sort of the soap opera, the salacious, the gossipy, which probably in a book like this is necessary to keep the narrative momentum going. But it also can feel at times a bit dated, or raises its own question of, can you necessarily trust all of this? I mean, how much of this is just simply made up rumor that has over the centuries and millennia become accepted as historical fact? Also, a problem is that my copy of the book, from between 160 to 180 something, or even up to almost 190, has misprints. So it goes to 160, then it goes back to about 153, up to 160, and then there's a skip to 170 something, and then I think there's another, if I remember correctly, there's another skip in there. And I'm like, really? So I'm not entirely sure, like, is there anything else that's going to be wrong with this book when I get to it? So I don't know. I don't know if I still want to continue with it. I am currently on page 218 which is going to be focusing on Empress Wu of the Tang Dynasty. So, I don't know. And this discussion has not really cleared up my decision. So anyway, we shall see. Okay, so prompt number 2 is, what is the biggest book you have ever read? I'm fairly sure at about 22 some odd pages, it's going to be the complete Death Note. The smallest book. So number 3 is, what is the smallest book you've ever read? I'm thinking it's probably Variety Photoplays or Stars in My Eyes by Edward Field. I don't have Variety Photoplays anymore, so I don't know exactly how long it is. But I think it's probably Stars in My Eyes, now that I think about it. I think it's not even, maybe slightly more than 50 pages. So yeah, I think it's that one. Prompt number 4, and it's a slim volume of poetry that focuses on movie-themed poems. Prompt number 4, is the size of a book intimidating? Yes and no. Sometimes, particularly if a book can hook you, size really isn't all that intimidating. But if it's a fairly plodding book or fails to sort of hook you, it can be quite intimidating, if not downright off-putting. Question number 5. Is size a consideration when deciding what to read next? No, not really. It's pretty much whatever I'm thinking of for my next month's reading or what I'm in the mood for, more so than size. Particularly given the fact that while this individually is the longest book I've ever read, I have also read over the course of these last few months and throughout 2025, I will be reading or rereading a number of the manga series that I have completed and collected. And so I spent January for 2 weeks reading all of Fairy Tail, which is 63 volumes long. I'm going to, at the end of the year, do one for Naruto, which is 72 volumes long. So, in a way, even though those are like individual volumes, the overall length of them is quite long, and those don't intimidate me. So, anyway, where are we at? Volume number 6. How many pages long is the book you are reading now? Now let's get to the world, since that is technically what I'm still reading, even if I do decide to bail on it later on. Okay, I'm going to count the conclusion in this. 1262. 1262. Question number 7. What is the average length of the books you read? So the manga that I read is usually a little more than 200 pages. Everything else, it depends. Some volumes of poetry are usually about 100 pages or less. History, it's usually about 300 to 500 pages. Fiction, how long has it been since I've actually read a novel in prose form? It's been a while. Question number 8. Do you think humans will bring back mammoths from extinction? It's quite possible. I haven't really kept up with the reporting on those attempts to see what the current status is. And number 9 is, do you think they should? Well, the problem is fundamentally, could these mammoths live in the wild? Or would they basically just be exotic pets or super exotic zoo animals? I mean, will their lives just be basically in a zoo? At which point, I mean, honestly, given how the world's going and given what mammoths are adapted for, I don't know necessarily if bringing them back from extinction really makes a whole lot of sense, because I don't know if they really could exist on their own given climate change. I mean, if we were entering into an ice age, maybe, because they were adapted for living under colder conditions than currently exist. And the way things are going, I don't think they're going to have much of an environment for them to live in. So, not entirely sure. Although, maybe keeping copies of their DNA on hand might be useful for something, but I'm not entirely sure if it's ultimately ethical to really bring them back, because, I mean, I don't think they would ever be able to go back into to be in the wild. I think they would only exist in zoos, which is not a reason to bring them back. If they could be repopulated and not cause too much ecological damage with their reintroduction, I'm willing to think about it, but I think as it is now, they probably shouldn't be brought back, no matter how cool it could be. And finally, the final prompt to tag some people. If you would like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged. And New Booktube, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.